Okay, I'll talk to you about Techum today. So most from people live in cities, in places where they never need to think about Techum. It's like not relevant to them. But when it does show up, so they're not even thinking about it. They might think if they go someplace, is there an area if you're allowed to carry outside? Some people don't even think of that. But for the Techum, it's not something that people think about. But it has relevance, particularly when people go away. They go on to a vacation home, to an Airbnb, or to a Pesach hotel, and it's in a remote area. And all of a sudden, they have to think about, or they should have to think about, where they're allowed to go and where they're allowed to walk from there. I doubt we're going to have time, but if we do, we'll talk about also people who went out of the Techum, which also has a Kashrus related one of those scenarios there has a particular relevance to us in Hashgacha. I have a feeling we're not going to make it that far. Okay. So the most basic din of a Techum is that first you decide where you were, your Makom Shvisa, what's your place, where were you when Shabbos started, and then you make this imaginary box around it, we call it the Techum, and then you can't walk out of that box. You can walk any place you want to in that big box, which is called the Techum, but you can't walk you will go on in circles if you want to all day long in that box, so you can't go out of it. I'm going to keep using the word Shabbos. You can't do it on Shabbos. The din is also applies on Yontif, but it's not as clear why. But the din does apply on Yontif. The Chassam Sofer says, why does it apply on Yontif? Why don't we say that it's Shem Oichel Nefesh? You should be allowed to walk out of the Techum. Allowed to do all kinds of other things. Well, why? The din it is you're not allowed to walk out of the Techum on Yontif. But he says, why does it apply even on Yontif? He says, what happened to Oichel Nefesh? So he says, well, no. It's not relevant. Oichel Nefesh is not relevant because Oichel Nefesh is the heter to do malacha on Yom Tov. But Techum is not a malacha. Techum comes from a different pasuk, from a pasuk nothing to do with malacha. So the heter of Oichel Nefesh, I'm not sure where that comes from, but he says the heter of Oichel Nefesh only applies to things that are malachas. Achash Oichel Nefesh. That although only those malachas are only malachas get much from that, but not other things. So okay, that's one way. So to then, that happens to be. Rikvega says that it does apply. There's Oichel Nefesh. Does apply to it, but Chassam Sofer says it doesn't. So then the Pri Chodesh says, he says, really? He says, he doesn't say it, Chassam Sofer, of course, but he says, how in the world do we even figure out that the Isser Techum applies on Yom Tov altogether? He says, it comes from a pasuk that's talking about Shabbos. I forgot the pasuk, don't remember the pasuk. He says, you're not allowed to walk out of your place b'yom hashvi. So he says, how do we even know there's such a thing that there's Isser Techum on Yom Tov altogether? If it's not a malacha. If it's not a malacha, why is it usher at all? And in fact, that opens up to a bigger shayla. There's a bigger to-do about whether the Isser Techum on Yontif is ever an Isser D'Oraisa. Okay, is it possible for it to be Isser D'Oraisa, or is the whole Yontif din of Techum a D'Rabbanan, which of course would be relevant if we ever get to it, and why that would be relevant. Okay, but it's a big to-do in the Achronim. Is the Isser Techum on Yontif ever a D'Oraisa? Again, and the pasuk is talking about Shabbos. That would be a reason not to. Okay, and yes, I'm going to keep talking about Shabbos. Okay. So a person, if the first thing we have to do is get the first Makom Shvisa. So the person's place is 4 Amos from wherever he is. He has 4 Amos in each direction whenever Shabbos started. Okay, but that's in theory only. It's mamish only in theory. In almost every case, he gets way more than 4 Amos to be his Makom Shvisa. That's goes like this. Spam and all this. And that's because a person, his Makom Shvisa includes, we'll say for now, the word his whole city. Okay, I'll tell you what that means in a second. And it includes his whole city. And therefore, what we call now for a city, I'll explain what that means in a second. And place can say a city doesn't just mean a lot of houses that are close to each other, but even includes areas that are included by an Eruv. Okay, an Eruv like a Shabbos, a carrying Eruv, also includes, it helps make the person's Eruv. Okay, why did I write that? Oh, that's kind of for the next part, that little thing on the box. Okay, so that means is if we have a bungalow colony that's got 20 bungalows in it, 20 little houses in it, and they're all close enough to each other, then the whole place, and then there's an area around the whole place, then the whole place is going to be considered one, is going to be his city. Okay. Now, in order to qualify to be a city, to me, I see 3 conditions that you have to have. First of all, is in order to be a city, we need to have 6 houses. So I know the word house is not really the right word. The way I wrote it over here was habitable living spaces. Okay, if we get to it, which we probably won't, I'll try to give you more details of what that means. A place that people can live in is you have to have 6 of those. They have to be within 70 and 2/3 amos of each other. Okay, which we'll go over. Moshe says it means 125 feet. I'll tell you about that in 1 second. They have to be within 70 and 2/3 amos of each other, and they also have to have excuse me, 2 chatzeros also. Okay. A chatzer means a place, an outdoor space that that they can use. Okay, so let's do that last one first before I get back to the 70 amas. The Chazon Ish says, he says, because you have to have a chatzer, he says, so you have an apartment building that has 20 people living in this building, but there's only one door one front door in the front with a space outside that they could use. He says that's only one house. Okay, well, it could be many houses, but it's only one house with one chutzner. You need to have 6 houses with, I think it's 2 chatzeros. Okay, did I get that right? 2 chatzeros. There's an apartment building, and l'chayra, the same thing would be a hotel also. He's talking about an apartment building, but it's a hotel also. I have to have a chutzner, meaning an outdoor area that we can use, so that we can have many people living in my building. But I'm still not yet a city. In order to get a city, I have to have many people. Okay, so now again, we live in a place where there's a lot of houses, and everyone's got a yard in front of it or in back, and therefore we're okay. We're qualified for us. But I'm talking about when you're in a remote spot, then it might not be. Okay, now in this, when I wrote here how much the share is 70 and 2/3 ounces. So it's just a little interesting here is that of course, there's a big question about how big an am is. So Rav Chaim went with the original way people always counted it, and he has what we call a smaller share. And the Tzlach brought up a question that maybe the share should be bigger. The Tzlach says, I'm only saying my share when it's l'chumra. He says, you shouldn't follow my idea of a bigger share when it's l'kula. That's what the Tzlach says. So for Tchumen, the Tzlach would go like, we'll call it Rav Chaim with the original share, because he says only when we go, he says we can only go, I only say my share when it's l'chumra. Okay. But Rav Moshe and Chazon Ish, when they say their shir, Rav Moshe says for sure, he says, Bein l'kula, bein l'chumra, I think my shir is right. Chazon Ish says, well, he said, for sure for things that have to do with measurements, there the measurement, the longer shir has to do with measurements, for sure you should go like that. Okay, so that's why there's different shirim. But it's just interesting that the Tzlach who sort of they're all basing themselves on, himself would have taken the smaller shir here. Okay. The next thing is, after we figured out our city, so this is our city. These are all the places that in this little gray box over here, the base shape over here, is all the houses that are close enough to each other that qualify to make this thing into one big city, or maybe that's the Erev around the place. Okay, but then we get one more bonus.
So the Erev extends it even if it's past.
Even when people are not living, there are no houses. But if the Erev, the wires we call it, we're not talking about Erev, the Erev for carrying, correct, that makes it bigger. It makes the place bigger. Okay, but then there's one more. The din that I'm about to tell you, Ribu Shal Ir, it talks about Shal Ir. The Chazon Ish says it applies to private people also. You don't have to be an Ir to qualify for this. Okay, after we figured out our whole city that looks like this, then we make a Ribu Shal Ir, and that means is we take this city that we had, we make lines around it. Okay, no, before we get to Ribu Shal Ir, sorry. Okay, well, I'll tell you. We make Rebusha, we take lines around it, which is to say we go to the most north spot in the whole city, and we make a line across the top. And the most south spot, we make a line across the bottom, and the east and the west. Okay, so we make a box from the most extreme spots in this city. Okay, and we do Ribuah Shalom, yes. That's why there's what's supposed to look like a compass. I don't know if that really is. That's supposed to look like a compass. We do Ribuah Shalom. And that became my place. So I had one little house there in the middle of some place. I took the whole city that became bigger, and then I took the Ribuah Shalom to make it even bigger. Okay, but that I'm hold on one second. I'm completely not going to. I was going to tell you that I'm completely not talking about Ribuah Shalom. Okay, it's just complicated too many things, and I'm ignoring that. Okay, pretend that there is no Ribuah Shalom. Okay, you didn't hear that. Okay, I'm going to just mention it in a second for just in passing for something. Now, the this that I told you that you should make a Ribuah Shalom only applies if you have a city that doesn't have a square or rectangular shape. Okay, if it has a square or rectangular shape, then that's its shape. Okay, Rosh Hashanah said also it doesn't have to be an exact square, basically a square or basically a rectangle, then that's considered its shape. You don't get Ribuah Shalom. So let's say if you had a city that was sort of rectangular, okay, but it didn't face exactly the Ruach Olam, that would be its ribua. Okay, but when we have a thing like a funny shape, or the didn't look like it's round, but it usually isn't exactly round, it looks some kind of a funny shape, then you get ribua shalir. You get this very extended, excuse me, makom shvisa. Okay, now there's some exceptions when we don't make exactly ribua shalir. I'm not going to tell you them in detail. I'm just going to quickly pass you by them. And one is when a city is the edges of the city are really far apart from each other. Okay, so in this place called Rainbow Park in Florida, if you see all along the edges on the right, top, and bottom, like in the shape like a letter ches, there are houses. Well, it looks like houses, it looks streets. So we're just assuming there are houses there. So assuming all those houses and all those spots were all close enough to each other to be considered a city, but between the two bottom legs of the ches, you see there's 4.5 miles in between them. Okay, so there's a really big space in between them. So then, if there's too much space in between the edges, you would not square off the city. Okay, so this is an example of one of the places where we don't say it. Okay, and that came up. It happens to be that was relevant. That was relevant to a question about whether people who stay in Skokie Yeshiva for on Shavuos night are allowed to walk back for the Suda on by day, and that's because potentially Skokie Yeshiva is cut off from what we call our in that spot over there, in that map over there, the red dot, the red pin is Skokie, and the circle on the other end is Rogers Park. Okay, so if your Techum was really started at the yeshiva, then you would not be allowed to walk this far. It would be too far to walk here. The question is their city, is that side connected to our city? And the question is because the highway runs down the middle, and maybe it cuts it off. And part of the question of whether they could walk to here, we could walk to there, because the yeshiva is right past the highway. If our city even ended at the highway, we could still walk to the yeshiva. But the problem is when people want to walk back on Shavuos morning, that potentially, and has to do with this question about a Kashrus. Okay, the question is, do the cities wrap around each other in a way that maybe makes them a Kashrus or not? Okay, I'm just mentioning it because it was relevant to us, but I'm not going to tell you the details. Okay, there are two other ways that people talk about maybe extending cities, which we're also not going to talk about. I'm going to tell you, it's big to do about these. And both of these, there's lots of people who think it's okay, or Belskita, both of these were not okay. Okay, one is when the two Ribua Shalir overlap each other, like over here in this case over here, we have two strange cities. Each one of them has Ribua Shalir. The houses of one city are not close enough to the other one to count it as one big city, but the Ribua of one overlaps the other one. There are those who think that that's okay. And then the second thing having to do with this thing called Ibur Shalir, which I'm not going to tell you about, is what happens. Could you extend cities by keeping any houses in the Ibur Shalir? The Be'er Halacha talks about it, and the Chazon Ish is more makel about it. So both of those are big to-dos about it. Rabbi didn't hold to both of them, if that means anything to you. Okay. Okay, so now we got our place. We have the place the person has. We have our city, and this is where the person was. Once we got that, then we make another box around that, okay? And that box is 2,000 amas. 2,000 amas outside the Ribua Shalir. So we go 2,000 amas in each direction to make another box, okay? So it means as we get 2,000 amas in each direction, the corners are going to be more than that. The din says it's about 2,800 amas, okay? Because the corners, of course, you get a little more than that, and that big box that you have is now the person's home. Okay, so the person in this case, if this is drawn to the scale that this is drawn at, just pay attention. A guy had one. He's living in a house in the middle of the gray there, someplace in the middle of what we call the city. Okay, according to the way this picture was drawn, his home would be 3.4 miles by 2.8 miles. Okay, if that 2,000 amas is that spot that I made over there, then the whole thing is a very big spot. He's got almost 3.5 miles by almost 3 miles that he could walk on. And that spot, he can do whatever he wants. Okay, he can walk on all around what he wants in that area. Okay, so it sounds like he's got lots and lots of space to walk. Okay, but on the other hand, you have to remember that it doesn't take very long to walk 2,000 amas. It doesn't take very long. Okay, it takes The average it takes is between 9 and 15 minutes to walk like that. So if a person goes for a spazier on Shabbos afternoon goes for a walk, he could walk out of the Techum. Okay, if he's not paying attention, he could walk for hours without walking out of the Techum. But if he walks the wrong way, he walk out of the Techum. There's a question here. I'm telling you, I just told you that, and that's what they say, that it takes between 9 and 15. It would take 9 and 15 minutes to walk 2,000 Amos. They measure how long it takes people to walk if they walk slowly or briskly or whatever it is. If it'll help you pay attention, it's from here to my house is about 1.5 miles. Okay, and I could walk here, and I've done it plenty of times in about 25 minutes. Okay, so just if you figure it out, it's between 9 and 15 minutes to walk 2,000 Amos. And of course, the question to that is that we have a din, and it comes up in a bunch of places that the hiluch mil, 2,000 Amos is a mil. The hiluch mil is 18 minutes. Okay, so why did I tell you that it takes only 9 to 15 minutes? Okay, so it's a good question. So I'm guessing that the answer is that we're used to walking on sidewalks and streets, and the hiluch mil was on grass and dirt and things like that. I can only tell you that's the best I could give to you to explain to you what the hiluch mil is 18. What did you say?
Yeah, taller, longer legs.
I would say if we mark like the bigger shitas, so we walk faster, maybe. I'm just guessing that has to do with that. It's because we walk on sidewalks and streets, and if you have to walk through the forest or through a field, you would walk slower. I'm just guessing. I have no idea. Okay.
And it's also based on how much you guys can walk on a whole day. It could be walk slower, You walk at a brisk pace. If you're walking all day long, how much you go 10 hours in a day?
So you're saying the Gemara share really is for a person who walked all day. That's true. So then how can we say Kedei Hiluch Mil, like for something to become chametz and to salt your meat is 18 minutes? It's not really true. You're saying a Hiluch Mil is really not. It's only if you walk the whole day's worth, then the 1 mil would be like this.
That's how you created the share. Once it's a share, it's a share.
Once it's a share. Even though it doesn't really take that long to walk a mil. You're saying it doesn't really take. Okay, maybe that's an answer. Okay, I could buy that. It's true. That's the Gemara comes from a Gemara about walking a whole day. So maybe could be. Okay, so now in this is the Erev map of Pesach Hotel. I don't know if we were given Kashrus. I don't think we were given Kashrus the year that these people's at this specific location. But this is the map that they gave out for the Erev many years ago in a hotel in San Diego. I can't even read from here where it is. And yeah, someplace wherever this place is. Okay, you'll see in a second that it's basically in a remote area. The building in the middle, where you see like the EFD in the middle there, that's the place where people sleep. Okay, that's the only place that there's the eating and sleeping goes on, and everything else is just side things. Okay, so things that wouldn't count as living. So if we assume that the people's place is in the center there, roughly in that center place, that's where their makam shvisa, so to speak, is. But you see the line going around. I put the purple squares just to help focus your attention. That's the Erev line going around it. Okay, that's the Erev going around it. So that funny looking shape thing like that, I don't know, sort of like whatever, I don't know what that would call like a half circle, that's the space for those people. And now we give a ripur shalir. Okay, now if we make a square out of that spot, so that's the makom shvisa. This is the makom shvisa for those people. Okay, now take the makom shvisa and 2,000 amas from that. I don't know why it says 2,000 feet on the side. I don't understand it, but it's really the top one, which is 3,545 feet. Okay, it's really hard to in Google Maps to an exact amount. The shear is actually 3,542. Okay, but anyhow, so give or take, that's the from the ribur shalir. We now go. We have that would be the Techum, and now if we make a box out of it, okay, because it's not just in one direction. That's the Techum for these people. Okay, so so again on the bottom in the middle, you see that was the ribur shalir, the 2,000 amas, and then here's the whole square that we have around them. Of how big, where the people are allowed to walk. So they have a lot of space that they can walk in. They can walk all that whole area they can walk around in, but they can only go so far. If they take a walk, then they would, the people from this hotel could end up at the Techum. That's what they could do. If they walk too far, they would walk themselves out of the Techum. Okay, so
from the Erev to the next house is less than 72 hours.
Right, because it's hard to see in the picture here, but it's basically remote. There's all woods all around it.
It doesn't have to be Jews.
That does not have to be Jews. No, actually, one of the cases of the Gemara of a house is a church. Okay, and it says if the Galach has a place to sleep in it, that's considered a house. And Mishnah says, you see, you don't have to be Jewish to be counted. Okay, we assume the Galach not Jewish.
From 2,000 years, from 1,000 years ago, I'm saying it's a good chance.
Yeah. Okay. Anyhow, so whatever. Well, it doesn't. You don't have to be Jewish. But if we look more closely, you'd see that there's nothing going on around this place. Okay, around this, which is pretty common. Okay, unless you're not at the DoubleTree in Skokie. If you're in any fancy hotel like that, it's going to be in this remote area, just in the middle of no place, in a Pesach. Okay, so that's the Techum for these people. We are going to have time. Look at that. Okay, now there's another thing. Techum doesn't only apply to people. Okay, Techum also applies to your possessions also, which is to say, is the Techum of your things is your Techum. Whatever your Techum is, the things that you own also have that same Techum. What happens if I borrowed something from you? If I borrowed something from you, then I borrowed, I don't know, a kais from you.
Has to be a jacket, something you can wear.
What did you say?
Be something you can wear, otherwise you can't carry it.
Okay, I'm coming to that. Okay, yes, I borrowed something from you. So the thing is, it depends on when I borrowed it from you. If I borrowed it from you before Shabbos, or I already told you before, I'm going to take your thing, then it follows my Techum because I'm the one who, so to speak, it's mine now for Shabbos. If I didn't borrow it on Shabbos, even if I know that I borrowed all the time, and I'm allowed to take it, that doesn't count, and it belongs to the owner. So Rabbi Shaul Reisman said that this has a practical nafkamina, which is to say is one of your kids came home for Yontif and they left their raincoat at home. Okay, and now where are they? Now they're back in Lakewood, or they're back wherever they live. Okay, and then it starts raining in the middle of Shabbos. Okay, so you say, hey, there's this raincoat sitting here. I don't have my raincoat. This raincoat's sitting here, so I want to go take the raincoat and go to shul. He says, well, the raincoat's Techum is your kid's Techum, and he is in Lakewood. Okay, so this raincoat is out of the Techum. This raincoat. What do you say? So this, I'm coming to that. So this, actually, I'm coming to that. So this raincoat is out of the Techum. Okay, so this raincoat can't move, as we're going to talk in a minute if I have time. Can't move more than 4 hours. Can't go anyplace. So even though I could walk very far, but the raincoat can't go out of the house. It can't get out of the house. If there's an Erev, so then, as we said, the Erev makes it the Mokum, the 4 amas that I have includes the whole city or the whole place with the Erev is. So if there's an Erev, then that's included also, and I could walk with raincoat. Okay.
As long as it's here, I would argue that your kid lets you use the raincoat.
Some of them also let him use it.
So the Shulchan Aruch says even if I regularly borrow something from somebody else, if I didn't arrange for it before Shabbos, it doesn't count.
Kids.
Even when it's sitting in your rishus?
Instead of sitting in my rishus?
Everything's in my. It's always in my rishus. The shaila.
I borrowed it before Shabbos. Let me use it.
If I from Chicago walk to Skokie Yeshiva and I want to borrow a raincoat and walk back, that's the simple case of this, where this kind of shvisa.
No, but it says
it
even
kind of shvisa in Skokie, you can get there, but the person can't get back to your house.
That's one case.
You have a kinyan, halacha kinyan, in order to have a shvisa.
Right, and so it says if you made up with a person beforehand that I can take it fine. But even if I always borrow from the guy, I always take it from him. That's the thing. Says even if I always take it from him, that doesn't count.
He's in my house. He's in my house. Let me use it.
Who belongs there? Halachically,
it's his. It's his.
Even if I don't
no.
Yet, even if I'm usually borrowing it, that's good enough, right? Is that what you just said?
If you regularly borrow it, if you regularly borrow it, it's not considered mine. No, it's considered the owner's. It's only if I made it before Shabbos. If I said,
this is as good as that.
No. So if the kid went back, he said, Chaim, I know you left your coat here. If I need it, it's okay if I use it. He says, yeah, you can use it. Then we're fine.
That's I'm
sorry. And on top of that, there's an opinion that says that as long as it's in the city, you could take it.
Say that again. If it's
as far as I know, Shita and Rishonim that you could, as long as it's in the Techum of the city.
In the Techum of what city? Tell what you mean.
His coat.
Yeah.
It's in the Techum of the city. I can go anywhere in the city. That's Dalams.
Yeah, I agree with that. I said so. If there's an Erev, not in the city.
No, without an Erev.
Without an Erev.
Not all of the cities. He's talking about when you walked out of the company. That's the same thing.
That's my memory of Erev. I think it's correct.
Okay.
I went past like that apparently, but I mean, together with, I don't think it's all that clear that the raincoat has the.
Okay. I'm going to stop here because there's too much. The rest is too much. So I was going to. The other part we talked about was whether somebody walked out of the Techum, which has its own. I'll just tell you the nafkamina was the Kashrus nafkamina. I won't tell you the other two cases was food that came late for Shabbos. Okay, food that came late for Shabbos from out of the Techum to a group of people who are now the food's out of it. But I'll have to wait for a different time.